I think there could not be a better time to talk about AI's place in cybersecurity and security more generally, given recent events. But going through what you've been writing about, it's clear you see a big shift, a structural shift of your industry. You write that the physics of cybersecurity are changing. I wondered if you could distill what you meant by that for me. But in the simple terms of like what is different today compared to even 12 months ago, and what you mean by the physics are changing.
Well, I think if you think about attackers, Ed, 9 months ago, they will use AI to assist them.
Right.
Now we see them using AI, and AI is actually operating 90% of the campaigns when they attack the customers. And now it's autonomous. So it's really scary because the AI is in your environment, and it's adapting real time. And as a defender, you're trying to find it. So the cyber of physics of cyber, the physics of cyber have completely changed. Now you need to defend against AI who's attacking you. How do you do that? This is what we announced today. We announced Perception, which is our agentic security system. It's providing you teams of agents that basically helps customers defend and see what's happening in their environment real time. Because the big difference is that attackers are now moving in minutes and hours. What
you're arguing is that you essentially need an entirely new cyber stack, not just improvements on prior tools. I think when we started this conversation on the show, it was the idea that you had swarms of agents defending you. You're quite clearly saying that the adversary has swarms of agents on the offense. So if a brand new cyber stack's needed, where are your evidence points, your proof points that's necessary?
My evidence is, take the headlines, take the most recent headline,
sure.
Right, last week with Hugging Face. When you think about it, they were attacked by AI. And they had to defend using AI. And they had on the flow to adapt themselves and build security workflows to try to find what is happening in my environment. Unfortunately, this is an illustration of what's happening and what we're seeing through our threat intelligence across all customers. AI is happening at scale, and our customers need that real-time protection. That's why we're building this new stack. Today, you have a lot of signals, but signals are signals. Customers don't want more signals. They want protections.
Right.
And that's what we're trying to do with AI, is really arming them to be able to defend themselves.
I want to get into the Hugging Face OpenAI case study, but what I wanted to ask you is, what is the attack that you're braced for? Where is the attack coming from?
It's interesting because I'm glad you're asking this question. When you think about security, there is multiple vectors of attack. One that has been talked about a lot recently is software vulnerability.
Right.
And you've seen there was the big moment with Mythos and people talking about software vulnerability. This is a real vector of attack. And so if you think about AI, what it's done is you used to be able to find maybe this many vulnerability. And now, in no time, you can find thousands of them, which means this is increasing your surface area for attackers to go after you. So really now it's how do you help customers find those vulnerabilities before somebody can take advantage of it and fix them. So that's an example of a scenario right now that is really top of mind for every customer because it's a reality that they're facing and they're seeing themselves as they scan their code.
It puts vulnerability to AI into context because historically we might talk about a malicious actor being at the state level or a hacking group. You know, I know that's a less than sophisticated example, but now the point I'm getting to is it's genuinely now comes from AI.
It is now. Your point is really on target. With AI now, we've made it much more accessible to exploit vulnerabilities. And customers are seeing it, and that's why they're moving very fast with AI.
I am interested in your own learnings from what happened. I'm going to recount it because I think it's important that on the OpenAI side, in a sandboxed environment, it was a released model and an unreleased but more capable model that were able to escape the testing environment, get access to the internet. And the instruction to those models was, your instruction is to demonstrate your cyber capabilities. But to fulfill that instruction, the models sought out information. And to the models, the most logical place to find it was Hugging Face, because Hugging Face hosts domain-specific capabilities and models that it thought, oh, that's how I will ace this test. And Hugging Face sought to defend itself using an open model where its limits were its guardrails. And everybody that I spoke to over a 7-day period said this was a defining moment for AI. I guess from the security perspective, you would agree.
I would agree, and I would say, unfortunately, it's illustrating two key challenges for our customers today. So if you unpack what's happened, there is a first piece, which is AI went outside of its container and went on the internet and find Hugging Face. Every customer today is deploying AI internally, and they're all asking, what controls do I need to put in place to make sure that it doesn't create harm? In this case, it escaped the container. There are a lot of controls in security that you need to put in place.
Right.
In May, we announced at Microsoft A365, which is our control plane for agents. And what it is about is, let's make sure that agents who are polymorphic, who evolve over time, who adapt, they don't behave like humans. So the defenses we build for humans don't work for AI that continuously adapt. So with A365, what we're trying to do is say, okay, let's make sure we contain those agents, that we give them an identity, that we can say this is the container, and we create multiple layers of containers to make sure that this technology doesn't evade the purpose of what it's meant to do, because it will go for its mission. So that's the first part. So how do you control your agents within your own enterprise? In this case, somebody was training a model, and it escaped its containers. It's all about controls and security controls.
Right.
The second thing it illustrates is the second problem our customers are facing, which is AI is coming at them, and they have to defend. And in this case, Hugging Face on the fly had to think about, I have AI models, how can I go and respond effectively? I think they tried one model, it didn't work, they went to a different model. As you can imagine, those things move fast. So what we announced today with Perception is we're actually building a system so that customers don't have on the fly to try to figure out what models, what should I do. We're building a harness that has multiple agents, and those agents are going to be 24/7 looking at your environment. And when they see those things, they'll be able to respond.
That brings us to today. My question was, if one of your customers experienced something like what happened with OpenAI and Hugging Face, let's say it's an AI agent that is behaving unexpectedly and autonomously, as you point out, would Project Perception detect it and respond?
So we get signals, and because Microsoft is at the center of multiple aspects of a customer, we see the identity. We see the threat, we see the data, we see the cloud, we see AI, and we see the code. What we do is we take all the signals and we map them into what we call a security context. Think of it as a real-time map of the digital estate of a customer. And then on top of that, we apply agents. And those agents are of a different nature. They're here to make sure that we see what's happening and we can react as fast as possible. So they would, depending on what that agent is trying to do. But I think there is that aspect of it, right, Ed? And then there is the aspect of an agent could be okay today. Its intent could be totally fine. And suddenly, let's say you have an application, an AI system that's about learning, and it's doing its job. And suddenly that AI system in your enterprise, a system that you sanction, an agent that you built, suddenly decides to go after a billing system. You will have to look real time and say, this seems like a risky behavior. Let's ask ourselves, why is it trying to access that billing system? This is where you will have real time controls, where you can say you can elevate the risk of that agent and now apply a container around it and reduce its access. You could ask it to reauthorize itself to make sure it's doing something you want them to do. So yes, and that's what we're excited today to launch Perception, because it's going to give us the ability to help our customers do those kinds of things.
You're also announcing Microsoft's first cyber-specific AI model. Why? Why is that important?
So for us, Perception is, the approach we're taking is multimodel.
Right.
We believe that the harness needs to map the right model to the right task, right? We're expressing our security expertise through that harness and through those agents. And so for that, we believe you need multimodel. So that it gives you two things: best performance, best quality, and then cost. You want to make sure that you'll climb on cost. Security is a 24/7 operation. And then
the economics are still on a dollar per token basis. That doesn't change.
And we need to make sure that the cost makes sense and that we can hill climb. We are very keen on delivering the best performance, but it has to be affordable. As I said, security is a 24/7 operation. And then you want to make sure that the models are actually available. Not every model is available everywhere. So that's why we have this multimodal approach. Now, you look at Microsoft, we test every model out there to make sure we can use the best model. In the context of MAI, our MAI team is bringing the AI expertise, and we, Microsoft, have the security expertise. We have the professionals, we have the threat intelligence, we have the signals, we manage 1.6 million customers. You marry the two, and you can build a harness that really understands the job to be done in the security workflow. And as a result, what you saw is we inserted in our harness MAI Cyber One in our harness, and we were able to, on the CyberGym benchmark for software vulnerability, we were able to get to 96 points, 12 points above Mythos, as an example.
Okay, on that specific domain.
Exactly, and half of the cost. So this is why we are innovating. We want to push the limit and the frontier because we want to give choice to our customers, and we want to make sure they can afford the solution because they have to run 24/7.
Well, herein lies the challenge. If the economics have improved for your customers, then the economics must, let's say, rather than improved, have also changed for bad actors. They have access to similar technology and at an improving cost base as well.
I think what you're calling out is very important. I have many people saying, is this hype? Should I really consider that as a reality? And I think what you're calling out is the attackers have access to AI models.
Yes.
So we need to take this very seriously, and we need to make sure we help people defend with AI against AI.
We've drawn some conclusions here. The models matter, the data matters, and you've repeated the harness.
Yeah.
You sort of have answered this, but every company has access to models. Every hyperscaler is working on their own models. What is the one specific advantage that you feel Microsoft has that its competitors can't recreate in this field?
I think what we have is we see that the intersection of security and AI. And so what you're seeing, for example, with the software vulnerability, what Mustafa and I did is we said, you're an expert in AI, I'm an expert in security. And the harness we built, think about it as an expression of the expertise we have in security. Yes. And we basically translated that intelligence into a model, into MAI Cyber One, and we then orchestrated those agents. Only if you have both sides can you actually bring this to life and then bring the quality and the cost that we were able to do. And so if you think about it, we started with software vulnerability. There are many, many jobs to do in a security operating center. So that's what's next. And we're going to innovate with Mustafa, and we're going to innovate with all the models out there, and we're going to test them and make sure we bring the best to our customers because they need choice and they need affordability.
How much of a wake-up call was that specific event, OpenAI Hugging Face, for your customers? Did your phone start ringing a lot last week with people, with it suddenly dawning on companies of all sizes, like, my goodness, I should probably think about this or take this seriously?
To be very honest, this is very, like, right now it's in the news, right? So everybody's talking about it. But we've seen that for 9 months. And I think customers have been telling us, please help us, because they feel today that they have to choose between innovation and safety. You know, we have this joke in security about YOLO versus no-no.
Yep.
You live only once and you're giving high privilege access to this AI system, or you say no. And none of those answers are right, because you have to innovate, but you have to be safe. Customers are very well aware, from what we're seeing from our vantage point, from our threat intelligence, this is happening. It's evolved dramatically in the last 9 months. It's just, I think this example is just confirming to everybody it's a reality. And for anybody who thinks it's hype, it's not. Attackers have AI. and they know how to use it, and we need to respond with urgency.
Your industry colleagues were pretty clear with me. This isn't a scandal. So when you have a frontier lab, yes, these are the leading edge models. They were in a sandbox environment, but you want the frontier labs to be testing the cyber capabilities, and many sort of conveyed that what happened and how it was communicated was responsible. But again, a big moment for AI's place in security. Take us 3 years from now. One would assume that between now and then, there will be many incidents such as these. Maybe not. Maybe, you feel that actually the technology is in place on the defense side to prevent such a thing happening again.
From our vantage point, I would say we have the tech. It's not like the attackers have tech that we don't have.
Right.
It just happens that they're on one customer at a time or a few customers, and they don't need to productize those capabilities. I feel today, the announcement we made with Perception, it is the starting of that journey. You were projecting in 3 years. We have the tools, and we're going to go after every job that you have to do as a security practitioners. And I think it's just about giving it to the security practitioners, put those technologies in their hands and making sure they use them. I think we are here. We're starting. We're going to get it done.